Hello everybody, welcome to my channel. This is going to be the first video in a series of videos where I'm actually talking instead of just doing a speed drawing. We're going to be going through my dark horror coloring book. I've got it on Amazon. I'll be putting a link to that in the description. And we're just going to go through one page at a time. This video, I'll be coloring the first page with this guy. Got text on one page, picture on the next. It's a whole book. We're gonna go through the whole thing. I've got little quotes off to the left. I don't know if any of you have played Magic the Gathering, but they've got the little flavor text at the bottom. It's something I always liked a lot. Here we have, I may not win this duel, vile beasts, but your missing limbs will remind you of me for all time. The cornered soldier charged at the vampires. He managed to lop off a finger. So this whole thing is just some dark fantasy, mostly medieval. Got monsters and mutants, and a little bit of humor on the side. So the trick here is I'm going to color them up. I've decided to go with two sets of complementary colors. I'll be using pencil crayons, going with blues and oranges, and reds and greens. It's not quite a triad. What is that color? No, a tetrad. A tetrad is a 4-piece combination on the color wheel. I'm just using two sets of complementary colors. It's not exactly a tetrad. And the reason for that is because once I put down, let's say, a red with a green next to it, they'll make each other pop. So what I do a lot of the time is actually use the complementaries to create shadows. And you'll see how that works. I've got my 4 colors. Main color, I think I'm gonna go with a blue. And keep everything very sharp because I'm not putting almost any pressure at all. We got a dark blue here by Artist Loft. I don't have a single brand of pencil crayons. A lot of this is just Mod Podge I've thrown together over the years. Now, let's see the light. Based on the shadows I've drawn on them, I think the light's coming from the upper left. It almost always is with everything I do. So I want that to be the brightest area, so I'm actually going to leave the 10 o'clock cardinal. I'm going to leave the 10 o'clock cardinal white as I can, because I want to make it look like metal, right? And the shine, it's going to be an actual white. And then just a little bit into that is where my blues are gonna start. Now, I said that very quickly, but what I mean is, as I'm visualizing him as a 3D shape, the thing that is just a little bit farther away from the light than the absolute whitest part is what I'm coloring blue. And you'll see that based on where I'm placing all this blue. I'm pressing very lightly, kind of getting in close to the shadows around the plates, but making sure that I'm actually thinking about the negative space. And what I mean by negative space is anything I'm not coloring. It's kind of like flipping your focus in reverse. I don't know if you use Photoshop, but same idea. You can select inverted. Just kind of use that with your eyes. So now my blues are down in the bottom right corner to kind of just emulate that shadow. Really, I could just only do blue. Keep this a monochromatic image, which, you know, might look good. But I mentioned earlier the popping effect of those complementary colors, which is going to be orange in this case, opposite of blue. Complementary is anything that is opposite on the color wheel from its opposite color. Don't know if I have a color wheel in reach here. Let's look around. I was just holding one and I don't know where it went. That's alright. If you Google color wheel, you'll see it all laid out specifically. And blue and orange are right on the opposite side of each other. Yes, this is all metal. I had to double check. I actually did this coloring book earlier this year. And it's funny, when you're drawing often you actually improve. So what I had to do was draw all of the figures in here pretty much at the same time. I think we have 30 pages, aren't numbered. We have about 30 pages roughly, give or take. And I essentially worked on them all at the same time as each other. Doing this pencil sketch throughout all 30, doing some black line here and there, putting some more black line here and there. If you draw everything that you're drawing at the same time like that, you can avoid, I don't know if you have OCD like I do, but personally, as I'm looking at this, all I can think of is little corrections I want to make here and there, because maybe 6 months has gone by since I put this out on Amazon. It's only $8.98 Canadian, by the way. Very cheap for what should cost $1 million, but you know, not in this economy. Okay, so I've really casually just dropped blue. Like you can see, I'm barely marking it. I'm just thinking about keeping as much of that white as I can, because once you color your whites, they're gone forever. You can't go get a white pencil crayon and color over it. It's not good. So less is almost always more. This pressure I'm using, I'm like, if I just hold the pencil like that, maybe 2 or 3 times that much pressure. Almost nothing. My pencil crayon is barely being worn away, but you can feel the difference. It gets a little smoother as you go. Alright. I think the sword, I want to do a different color because I'm all about that pop. When it comes to colors, my styles bounce sporadically between just black and gray and heavy metal, like miserable goth style, and then bouncy, juicy rainbow. I call it my juicy style. Contrast in all things. Just lovely. Okay, I think that's good for the blue. Excuse me. So, now I've got my blues down. Let us get some orange in there. I gotta leaf through here. Where did that... Dark orange, yes, perfect. Sharpen that up. Now, I'm gonna treat this like a shadow. This is gonna be very stylized, so it's not literally gonna be a shadow, but the eye is gonna be very happy with it when it looks at this. So, I talked about the white coming in from 10 o'clock, the blues being a little bit behind that. Now I'm going to come up from the bottom right, 4 o'clock, with these oranges, but I'm just gonna drop the slightest line. Oh, I forgot to do this. As I said before, I have severe OCD. There we go. Yeah, just a little bit of orange, just enough to, that's that as well. Just enough to give a bit of flavor to the vision. And you'll see, even though I'm really not being all that careful with it, I'm just putting it on that 5 o'clock incoming trajectory. And it's really starting to liven things up here. I'm using more pressure. I said only two or three times the weight of gravity. I'm actually turning that up quite a bit for this orange because I want to use a very sharp pencil and just get that solid line in there. This is actually something I would want to do with a marker. Very traditional. I actually know almost nothing about digital art. I know a little bit of Photoshop, but not much more than cleaning up or rendering a picture like this, which is pretty simple. It's just a bunch of black. You can see it's very pixelated. I actually, I did this. I did many of these pages with Microsoft Paint, and I just brought it into Paint. Like all this black around here, and take the scissor tools and select it all, fill it with paint, until a very lovely lady told me about GIMP, which is a free Photoshop clone, essentially. I used Photoshop in school. I went to Sheridan College. So picking up GIMP was actually very easy. That's a GIMP for anybody who doesn't want to shell out their life savings for Photoshop. Alright, so this is really starting to bang it out. Really starting to make it pop. I don't know if any of you have played Halo. You remember the elites and their opalescent colors. Halo was a beautiful game. Lots of colors, but it wasn't silly. It was kind of silly. But everything looked great when it came to the alien technology. And this sort of opalescent sheen reminds me of that. And I'm very happy about that. This is good. Most of my choices when it comes to color matching is literally based on just those rules of color, tetrads, triads, complementary, this and that. I gotta brush up on my terminology. I've honestly not been very artistically active for years. But I start with the rules, and then you can break them as you go. Foundation is everything, in my opinion. Foundation allows you to build your own techniques. It allows you to break rules in ways that work, because once you know the rules, you know how to break them. That's not my quote. I've heard many people say that for many things. Yeah, I'm just placing orange here and there, mixing it in. Now, since I'm using a second color, oh, forgot that. Since I'm using a second color, the wax from the pencil crown is going to be a little more difficult to stick to the page on top of the previous color. Naked paper receives the color the best. So every time I make a stroke, I'm using up, what's the term? There's a term for this. Land space? Residential space. I'm using up space that was white, that did grip well, and I'm turning it into a slippery texture that's a little bit tougher to put on. That's why I have to push a little bit harder. However, you want to be careful because if you push too hard, you'll create an inconsistency, which is difficult to balance throughout your composition. Okay. That seems pretty good. I'm just going to fill in some orange in areas that I think are going to be shadowy. Not because it's a rule of nature, but I like the way it looks. This is art. Get over it. Yeah, we'll just fill in a few more spaces, and then I'm getting some ideas for what I want to do with my red and green complementary colors, because this looks good, but it's only 2 colors. I could actually, you know what, I'm gonna do that. What I could do is bring in another variation of a blue. What's this? We got light aqua, and just kind of let's bridge the gaps between our whites and our blue, our dark blue, with this aqua color, and I am enjoying this. So I'm creating an outline of the white very carefully, because I'm starting to run out of white space. And once you run out of white space, it looks very messy, and it makes you sad. Trust me. Ask me how I know. So now we've got 3 colors going on, because this aqua is actually a little further away from the dark blue than I thought. It's got a little bit of green in it. Like I said, it's been a while. So I'm being extremely soft with this. I don't want this to overpower anything, because it's actually kind of off the beaten path of the complementary plan that I set out to do here. Yep, we're doing it live. Well, not live, but I definitely didn't plan this out. So I'm just gonna highlight that in. Now, you notice I'm getting really picky about making sure I've got a little bit of it everywhere, because what happens is when you have colors that are the same, like this dark blue, dark blue, dark blue, dark blue, dark blue, dark blue everywhere, your eye will follow that. It'll do the same thing with lines. That's why I do this triangle. It really bangs the figure into the center. I like putting geometrics behind things. But what you want to do is bring your reader's, viewer's eye throughout the page. And one way to do that is to have repetitive shapes. I've done that here and there. Or repetitive colors, or directional lines, pretty much anything that travels your viewer throughout the page. In this particular image, it's very structured. It's clang, 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 triangle. He fits in it. There's a little bit of breakage so that you don't feel too awkward. There's a little bit of breakage out of the triangle. That's just like a faux pas to have things line up too easily. You'll see the way he's standing here actually feels kind of awkward. It's neat. It's like he's stepping out, but this is strange. If I had a little bit of the toe coming out, it would have been that much better, but you know, I'll just have to make a new book. Okay, so I think I'm almost satisfied with my aqua. I'm trying not to kill too much white. Bring that everywhere I can, just so that the eye follows it. Okay, and don't let your OCD take over too much, because to be honest, people only look at things for about 1 second. So the whole thing pushing out at you all at once, people aren't going to notice little screw ups here and there. Hell, I could go get a yellow and sneak it in there and most people wouldn't notice it. What am I going to do with my red and greens? I think I'm going to make this a very interesting sword. Let's make it a green sword. Why not? Why not? So we're going to keep the white and this little indent. Let's do that. Sharpen this up. It's not quite as sharp as I like. Very light green going on up there. Green, green, green dye. Let's take this red. let's make that a little bit red. Just real careful right on the edge there. I'm gonna put some more red, perhaps a better red. $144, my favorite red. I love it when they don't name it Staedtler. Come on. There we go. Alright, so what's happened here is I've put down a little too much wax, and it is getting hard to stick. But I kind of like that anyways. It's interesting. Yeah, I'm gonna leave that one at that. Our hero who managed to chop off a finger before vampires tore him to pieces. The Opalescent Knight. I think I'm happy with the teal that I put in instead of the blue, or instead of focusing too much on my red-green here. But you know what we could do? We could play with light. So the thing about color is, I don't know if this will show. Not really. Do I have anything bright? Yellow? Perhaps this. Ah, yes. Okay. So you see the shadow of this squirt bottle? It's kind of red, isn't it? That's because colors bounce off of things and hit other things. And when they hit whites, it actually shows the color. So, this guy's wearing a shiny suit of armor. He's got a green sword. To make this a little bit more believable, we add some green to the armor around the sword. And the eyeball, it's a little messy here. The eyeball will actually just kind of go, yep, that's right. And no complaints will be made. Even though I'm just slapping green everywhere. It's a suit of armor. Why is it green? Because of the sword. And the brain goes, yes, of course. It would be reflecting. Now that really light green is competing with my teal and blue, so I'm actually going to give it a vein of dark green with a very sharp pencil because I want this thing to be borderline fine liner strength. I want it to really be there. Yeah, this is good. Now you see how just combining colors really makes a pretty look, but you gotta follow rules to start with. Otherwise, you will end up with a whole lot of mud. If you mix all the colors together like a crazy person, just put everything down, what you get is brown. That's how you make brown. You just mix them all together. Actually, most of the time it's complementary colors themselves, which is why I like using them for the shadows, because then they'll give that darkness to it. But yeah, just a muddy palette, kind of like I've done here. We'll create a brown. And yeah, I'm happy with that. Thanks for watching. And we'll do the next page in the next video.